Hi, welcome to this channel where we discuss tax and powerful finance insight that can help your businesses thrive. So today we are going to be looking at 4 tax benefits available to you as a small business owner operating in Nigeria. So if you're a small business owner, or of course you're a business owner, grab a chair and sit down and pay attention to this conversation right now. So before we dive deep into the conversation, if you're just coming across this channel for the first time, so you hit the subscribe button, the like button, and turn on the notification so that subsequently when we get to share quality content like this, you will be the first to be notified. So today we are going to be discussing 4 tax benefits available to you out there as a business owner operating in Nigeria. So before we dive deep into this particular benefit you need to know as a business owner in Nigeria, let's even look at it. What is a small business in Nigeria? So we are going to establish what a small business is in Nigeria so that you can know exactly how to navigate these benefits we are going to be sharing with you. So according to the tax law, in the eyes of the tax law, a small business is a business that does a turnover of 0 to 25 million. But well, that is the old tax law. And then now we have a new tax law in Nigeria right now, which looks at a business that is small as a business that does turnover from 0 to 100 million. But for the new tax law, it's going to take effect from 1st January 2026. So anytime you're watching this video, just know that from 1st January 2026, you are a small business by either doing 0 to 25 million or 0 to 100 million. So the old tax law is going to be terminated as at 31st of December 2025. So from 1st of January 2026, a small business is a business that does turnover from 0 to 100 million. So let's even know what is turnover. Turnover basically is all the inflow that comes into your business for the business purpose. For instance, if you are selling palm oil and clients get to pay you money, a client pay 100 million today, of let me start from 1 million. A client pay you 1 million today, and that client pays you 2 million net tomorrow, and that client pays you 5 million tomorrow. Cumulative of the turnover you receive from transactions in your business that sums up to 100 million in a 12 calendar month. That's what establishes if you are a small or a big company. So if before 1st of January 2026 you make a turnover of 0 to 25 million, you are a small company. And if after 1st of January 2026 you make a turnover of 0 to 100 million in Nigeria, you are a small company. So because of inflation and a high standard of living and things have become expensive, the government deemed it fit to increase the threshold of a small company from 25 million to 100 million. So now you know what a small company is. And then let's dive deep into these benefits we will be looking at today that will help your business thrive. So stay with us as we proceed to dive deep into these benefits you need to know as a business owner operating in Nigeria. So let's look at the first point. The first point is talking about value added tax exemption for small companies. So according to section 15 of the Value Added Tax Act, the act establishes a threshold for compliance to VAT obligation for companies operating in Nigeria. And the act sets the threshold at 25 million, which is also the threshold for small businesses operating in Nigeria. So if you are a small business in Nigeria, you are not mandated to deduct and remit value added tax to the Federal Inland Revenue Service. But this is the catch. If by any means as a small business you charge this value added tax in your transactions, the obligation now falls on you to ensure that you remit that value added tax you have deducted. So primarily it is not mandated, it's not compulsory for small businesses to bother themselves about VAT compliance, in the sense that it is not compulsory for small businesses operating in Nigeria to deduct and remit VAT to the Federal Inland Revenue Service. all companies operating in Nigeria are collection agents on behalf of the Federal Inland Revenue Service. So let's assume I'm into consulting, right? We're into consulting and then we're issuing an invoice to our client for consultancy services worth 1 million naira. And of course, our turnover is less than 25 million. So we are not mandated to add the 7.5% VAT on that 1 million naira on our invoice we are sending to the client. And this is why, because according to section 15, we are not mandated to do so. But in an instance where we decide to charge our client the VAT, then we have to remit. But then this section does not expressly say that those goods or services you are offering are VAT exempt. No, those services are not VAT exempt. You are only privileged not to comply to that section because based on that section, because you are a small company. But this is it. Even if you are not expected to file VAT or collect VAT and remit to the Federal Inland Revenue Service, you are actually expected to file new VAT, of course, on your tax promax. So you go into your tax promax, which is the online tax account, and then file a zero balance. File a zero balance and you file nil, that is, there was no VAT transaction within this period, with in line with section 15 of the Value Added Tax Act. So as a small business owner, basically, you don't need to bother about compliance with VAT based on section 15 of the Value Added Tax Act. What you just need to do is monitor your turnover, money that comes into your business, monitor it. Once it has not gotten to the threshold of 25 million as a small business based on the old tax law, you are not mandated to file VAT. But based on the new tax law from 1st of January 2026, once your turnover is not up to 100 million, of course, you are not mandated to file VAT. So to say, you can just file new VAT, but you're not mandated to deduct and remit VAT on behalf of your customer. Moving on to the second point, let's look at withholding tax exemption. Of course, a lot of people reach out to me, a lot of businesses reach out to me that how would they manage the issue of withholding tax, because most of the time clients or customers don't feel all right when you deduct withholding tax from their fees or of course from the transaction you have with them. Withholding tax is basically just take a scenario, me as a company A, I'm company A and you watching this video, you are company B. Then we'll have a transaction where I am paying you to offer me services, right? I am paying you to hire, let's say maybe hire your equipment or offer you a certain service worth 1 million naira. And then when I want to pay you for the service you are offering me, I deduct a percentage, a 5% from the amount. But of course, if we are dealing with hire of equipment, it's of course 10%. I'm deducting 10% for hire of equipment. For instance, I deduct 10% from 1 million, that's 900,000. I pay you 900,000 and I file the 10% to the government on your behalf using your tax identification number, which serves as a credit to you that you can use to reduce your company income tax at the end of your 12-month calendar year. Let's take, for instance, your company income tax at the end of your 12-month calendar year, of course, is 150,000. And based on the withholding tax we have deducted from you, which is 100,000 naira, and filed in using your team with the Federal Inland Revenue Service, you will use that to offset your company income tax, and of course, the balance you are going to pay is 50,000 naira. So let's look at what the withholding tax regulation of 2024 says about withholding tax for small companies. So according to the Withholding Tax Regulation Act 2024, which took effect on the 1st of January 2025, Section 4, subsection 2A and B talks about how withholding tax is treated for small companies. So according to this regulation and this particular section, withholding tax is exempt for small companies on two conditions. Pay attention to this, two conditions. Withholding tax for small companies is exempt for two conditions. One, if the company has a valid tax identification number. Of course, if the company, withholding tax is exempt for you if you have one, a valid tax identification number, and two, the transaction amount is 2 million or less within a calendar month. the amount for the transaction is 2 million or less within a calendar month. So if you meet these two criteria, of course, as a small company, you are exempt from withholding tax, right? That particular transaction is exempt from withholding tax. So next time, if you get your vendors, your suppliers, or people will deduct money from you, and then it violates these two criteria, then of course you can as well write to them or raise the issue up so that they don't go ahead to deduct the withholding tax. And then also another valid point I would like to make when it comes to withholding tax is you need to ensure that if the person you are offering services to deduct withholding tax from the transaction amount you people have agreed on, ensure that the person files that withholding tax to the Federal Inland Revenue Service on your behalf, because that will serve as a withholding tax credit. It serves as a credit to you when you want to pay your company income tax. But this particular conversation, I'm going to be having it in the subsequent points, right? We're going to be elaborating on this particular point in the subsequent points I'm going to make about this particular conversation we're having. So just ensure that when a client or your supplier deducts withholding tax from you, ensure that they file, follow up with them, ensure that they file to the Federal Inland Revenue Service on your behalf using your tax identification number. It's very important. I'm going to explain why in the subsequent points. So this is the fourth point, and this is one of the most interesting points. This is the point where we are going to be discussing about your withholding tax and how you use it to offset your company income tax in more details. You know, a lot of business owners get to do transactions with their customers, with vendors, and of course, when they deduct this withholding tax on their invoice, they don't get to file, and those people, you don't reach out to them, they just feel comfortable and relaxed. But this is the point: you are losing money, because if someone deducts withholding tax from you, they are supposed to file to the Federal Inland Revenue Service with your tax identification number. And that money, several businesses you have done business with are filing on your behalf as withholding tax with your tax identification number, serves as withholding tax credit and helps to offset your company income tax. Let's get a practical example. For instance, I'm company A once again, now you are company B, you watching this video with me right now. We have a transaction. Let's say, for instance, the hire of equipment transaction we earlier discussed. And then the transaction is, of course, 100 million, right? 100 million. And then the withholding tax for hire of equipment is 10%. There are withholding taxes at different rates. There are withholding taxes at different rates, ranging from 2% to 2.5% to 5% to 10% to 15% and even 20%, depending on the transaction, because withholding tax is a transaction-based tax. So let's come back to the point I was making. So if we have a hire of equipment transaction of, let's say, 100 million, and then I'm to deduct 10%. 10% of 100 million is 10 million naira and file on your behalf. So if I deduct that 10 million and pay you 90 million without filing, you are losing. You are losing in the sense that the 10 million I deduct, I go to use it for my own business and I don't file on your behalf. But then in a situation where I file the 10 million on your behalf, you are going to have 10 million withholding tax credit. Then let's take, for instance, at the end of the accounting year, you have done your financial statement, your auditors have done their job and presented the financial statement to you with your tax computation to file, and you are supposed to file or pay one round, let's say 12 million naira in taxes. Now knowing that you have already had 10 million naira withholding tax credit, so we are going to offset the 10 million from the 12 million, and the balance you are going to pay is 2 million naira. So that is how withholding taxes work for you. So the next time a vendor or anybody you go into transaction will deduct withholding tax from you and refuse to file, that is to mean that the person is not doing the right thing. So when anybody deduct withholding tax from you and refuse to file, the person, of course, is not doing the right thing. So you have the obligation to reach out to the person via email or reach out to the company and demand that that withholding tax is filed on your behalf, because that is a credit for you and it helps you to offset your company income tax at the end of the year when you are paying for your taxes. I hope these points we have made makes sense, and I've enlightened you further as a small business operating in Nigeria, and how you are going to navigate to have a good and thriving business. So thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned with us as we are going to be unraveling on this channel many insights from taxes, finances, and how you are going to thrive as a business owner and even as an individual. There are a lot of interesting things in the new tax law for individuals that are working 8 to 5. Employees in companies, there are a lot of interesting packages for you in the new tax law. And in subsequent communication, subsequent videos, we are going to be exposing you to all this information you should have at your fingertips. And of course, that will only be possible if you have subscribed and turned on the notification button on this channel, so that you can get the latest of the latest tax and finance information that will help you thrive. Thank you so much, and always stay tuned with us on this channel.